Joining us today is a very special young man. If you enjoy Dominica's music, you will recognize him as the leader and the lead singer of Signal Band. In his early years, he was a calypsonian under the name of The Professor, and he won 3 consecutive crowns as Calypso King. What you may not, however, know about our guest, Shelly Alfred, is, of course, he's a graduate of the Dominica State College, but he's also a graduate of Morgan State University for his bachelor's degree, where he was the valedictorian. In addition to this, he is currently pursuing a master's degree in architecture at Harvard University Graduate School of Design. Welcome, Shelly. How are you?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Simone. It's a great pleasure to be here on your program, and I'm doing well. I'm in Dominica, enjoying the weather, and for now I'm in good spirits, and I'm doing well, enjoying the last bits of the summer.
Good, good, good. So, I read your bio and I had to pause for a minute because I had no idea that the leader of Signal Band was so academically inclined. So congratulations on your success today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yes, yes. So there's a lot we have to cover because you're such a fascinating person. So I think what we will do first is look at your academic career first. So tell us, what was education like for you in Dominica? Is school something that you enjoy naturally, or is it something that you work very hard
Well, growing up, it was something that I enjoyed naturally, and my mom always mentions to me how much I used to read before, even compared, she always compares to how much I read now in contrast to how much I used to read before. And she used to say that basically in all my leisure time, I would spend that time reading. And from primary education to secondary education, I was always a top student in my class. And there was a point where that started to decline when I started to do music, but it was not like I was doing badly in school. It was just because I was starting to juggle these things. But I had a really good educational experience. I had great teachers that also, I think I owe a lot to where I am right now too, because I think they molded me into what I am today. They played their part, as well as, it was my hard work, but they played a part. So education was always at the forefront for my mother, I could say for sure. She worked in the Ministry of Education. I think that was a big part of it.
on?
So she worked in the Ministry of Education like for years, a lot of years, and just like CXC and Caribbean examinations plus other tests and whatever were very important to her. And it just naturally became a part of me because I know it was a part of her, and she just instilled those patterns in me.
Oh, excellent. And I'm very proud to say that my family has been instrumental in your education as well, because I actually met you through my brother Winston House,
Was my teacher.
who was your teacher. So,
Yeah.
so I'm happy to say that we played a role in your education. So tell
Definitely.
us about music back for you, because you were in Calypso. You won 3 times as Calypso Junior King, and then you decided to switch over to Bouyon music and created Signal Band. So why the transition?
The transition kind of happened naturally because I I started off as a guitarist in Signal Band actually, and as a founding member on the guitar, but having my background in calypso, I was forced by the band to start singing. And I remember even when the band started, we said that we didn't want to be a bouyon band, which we lied because we had no. But um, I think that was one of the reasons why I made that step to go sing, because I was like, the band is not a bouyon band. So I never really thought I could sing bouyon music, because bouyon music, the evolution of bouyon music, especially around that time, was heading towards chanting. And I know I wasn't a chanter. I had a nice voice. I was a singer. And I was kind of reluctant to do bouyon music, but then I realized that I had something to offer to bouyon music rather than bouyon just influencing me, I realized that I had a point that I could influence it as well. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go on this journey and I'm going to try to bring my singing talent, my knowledge of the theory of music into Bouyon music.
Yes, and I certainly want to come back and touch on that subject. But before we do, tell me some of the challenges that you guys faced early on in trying to start the band and trying to get some traction with your music and the band.
Yeah, I think our age was surely one. We started the band. I think I was 14 years old, and our youngest member at the time was 13 years old. So we were very young. And I think it was very hard to convince people. Whether, I mean, sometimes I look back at what we used to play or what we used to song like. Maybe it wasn't so convincing as well. But, you know, we had difficulties convincing people that, we have talent and, they give us an ear. And then beyond that, I think it was also a lack of mentorship as well, which I always cry for in Dominica. Because we have a lot of talented musicians in Dominica. And I just wish like there would be more mentorship because we have some living legends and we don't want their successes to just be something that we speak about, but they need to start like influencing people like on the ground. So that's something we battled for. And basically I think our uprising got slowed down by that because a lot of the things that we learned was self-taught. So that pretty much like the mentorship and our age was like our biggest challenges.
Right, right. Certainly, I can see why that would be the case. Now, let's look at the music because you made a very important point that I want to explore a little bit more. Because it seems like Bouyon music had a really good start in terms of when the original WCK started it. But as of late, it's become a lot of what you call chanting, which I think when you guys came along, you actually provided real lyrics, real melody, and it kind of changed the face of Bouyon music. So what was the reception? Were people kind of receptive to that or?
I think they were very receptive, surprisingly as well, because I remember the first song that we started exploring, even a change in tempo, was Annie by Your Love. And I was really nervous about the release of Annie by Your Love. I was just like, guys, I don't know how people going to take that song. You know, it's slow and it's very lyrical. It has a lot of lyrics and it's not your usual Bouyon song. And we know it's a Bouyon song, but it's just not our usual. So I was very nervous about that. And I was surprised to see how receptive that people were to it because, I mean, I guess that's partly because of the lyrics resonated with them, but also because it was a breath of fresh air, it was a new venture that it was maybe explored by the Bouyon pioneers back in the days, but for a while we haven't had that style, a slowed down, sort of more sentimental Bouyon.
And speaking as one of the older Dominicans, because I'm sure you guys are pretty young, we do appreciate the fact that we can understand the words of your song. I know the main purpose of a lot of the Bouyon music is to get people to dance and enjoy the music. But I think it adds a really important element when you actually create a song that people can enjoy the lyrics to. So tell me about the success of that song, Annie by Your Love, because I swear I've heard that song in just about every commercial in Dominica.
Yeah, it was a very much sought after song. I think the interesting success about that song is that it came at a very good time. Dominica just undergone Hurricane Maria in 2017, and I remember the situation was that the band had no equipment and place to record, and I was in Baltimore. I was attending Morgan State University at that time, and actually I was graduated, so I was actually working at an architecture firm in Baltimore. And that happened, the hurricane happened, and then I felt like, naturally as musicians, we have a sort of responsibility to aid in the psychological needs of our listeners. So I figured that obviously music, we need to do something for them. So thankfully the lives of all the band members were spared, and I was like, guys, we need to make a song.
Right.
And they were like, we have no equipment, everything's messed up. So I had to step up to the plate. And I began producing, and then they pretty much did their part using a generator and working at hours before the curfew because there was a curfew, and it was a very interesting like battle to produce the song, and then the lyrics itself like just came together because Dominicans were looking for that sense of hope, and it brought a certain togetherness with them, like they were sharing and all of that. So the Anybody Will Love theme just fit perfectly for that moment.
Right.
And it was exciting to just see all of that manifest and everybody just embrace the song. That was great.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. So, speaking of which, what is would you say has been the biggest opportunity that the band has received to date? What is the biggest stage you've performed on so far?
Well, last year we were given the opportunity to represent Dominica at Carifesta in Trinidad and Tobago, and that was to me the biggest opportunity because I will be honest that a lot of the people that I look up to in music are from Trinidad and Tobago,
Right.
and it was great to be in their culture and experience that firsthand. And then I guess the more interesting part was that it was an exchange of cultures. Like we got their culture, but we also got to offer our culture to them, and also other cultures in the Caribbean. So Carifesta, like we performed on a bunch of big stages. Like it was a festival, so we did like 7 performances, and they were just all magnificent and unique in their own way.
Right, right, right. Now, speaking of the music again, so who is the songwriter? Are you the one writing the songs for the band?
Yeah, majority of the songs are written by myself, and
Okay.
I always seek the help of my band members or even close friends, because sometimes I get a little creative block, you know,
Right.
and I think it's because like I'm kind of sometimes doing so many things at the same time, so I always get their help, but the majority of the time I write.
That you write the songs. So if you're just joining us, we're speaking to Shelly Alfred out of Dominica. He's the lead singer of Signal Band, but we are wonderfully surprised to find out that he's also currently a graduate student at Harvard University. So we're exploring all aspects of academia and music with him right now. So Shelly, tell us, what has been the impact of COVID-19 on the band?
Yeah, COVID-19 has been a sort of bittersweet moment for us, I would say, in the sense that our biggest stream of income, live performances, which I would say like is like 80% of our income as musicians, is now no more, basically,
Right.
for the time, you know, and we can't really do live performances right now. And even if like we can maybe do a certain capacity, but that might not be enough to allow us to make profits and all of that. Or even if a promoter, you know, I might not allow a promoter to make enough. So in terms of live performances, it has really put a halt on our progress, and we had some tours in place this year that couldn't have happened. Other than that, to be honest, other than live performances, I'm trying to see the opportunity in COVID-19 for us as musicians, because I will say that I've been able to sit back and be inspired a lot.
Good.
And, you know, performing always hinders your ability to be able to sit and get creative and write, you know, which is why a lot of the musicians that perform a lot have writers. But because sometimes we write a lot of our own music, that getting that time right now to actually sit and write is actually great. And so I'm not trying to make COVID-19 be so much of a good thing, but we are trying to see the opportunity in this time that we have right now, because there's a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of people who come on here who've been significantly impacted by COVID-19, they pretty much say the same thing. It's a great time to reset. It's a great time to look at your body of work and see, you know, what can I change? How can I be more inspired? What direction do I want to take this? So this is a great time to pause, look at what you have, and then decide where you want to go from there.
Indeed.
Yeah, certainly. So now we had Gordon Henderson on the program recently, and one of the very important things that he stressed that a lot of Dominican musicians unfortunately do not do is copyrighting their work. Is that something you guys have looked into?
Yeah, we are. All our works are actually copyrighted.
Excellent.
And generates royalties. And I mean, obviously it's like a retirement plan because it's not something that you go monthly and withdraw out of it. But it has been good to see it grow, and especially being young people and being in the age of technology. Understanding our mechanical rights and how our music gets sold on iTunes and all of that has been important for us. And right now, like every single song of ours is up for sale and it's registered and everything is set for Signal Band. Yeah.
Good. I'm so happy to hear that, because I was truly concerned when he said that we would be surprised at some of the groups and musicians who have not spent the time ensuring that they're getting royalties, their information their music is protected. So I'm really happy to hear that.
And it's interesting that Gordon himself is the one who has taught me the most that I know about copyrights.
Excellent. Yeah. So I'm really happy to hear that. So now let's talk about your journey to Harvard. How impressive is that? I have to tell you, I'm beyond impressed with you. So first of all, you were the valedictorian for your bachelor's degree. So congratulations on that. Now tell us, was it always your goal to get into Harvard? Or did you just decide to apply once you had finished your bachelor's?
Certainly not it wasn't my goal. I will say I was even skeptical about even going to graduate school. After I completed my degree, I was trying to figure out a lot about what I wanted to get out of life, because for some reason, I was young, but I felt like I was in some rush. So I started to figure out like, should I go waste another whatever years? Should I just go into my career? And speaking to a few people, really successful people, some people that have been in the situation that I was in at the time, they were like, no rush, you're a very young man, take it slow, make the right decision. They never told me what to do, and I pondered on it a bit, and I figured, okay, I'm going to get this graduate degree because I'm in the groove of school right now, so I should just take advantage of that. And so I know once I'm done with that, I will never have to go to school again.
Absolutely.
So, and so Harvard was still far from the equation at that time, I'll be honest. First time it came into the equation, it was because one of my classmates, who was actually the first student of the School of Architecture at Morgan to go to Harvard. So he was my good friend that I met on my first day of school. He's from Kenya, and we became such good friends that we went to Harvard together. He was a year ahead of me, but we also roommates at Harvard. So that relationship continued. But he was the one who introduced me to Harvard, and when he visited Harvard, he knew I was thinking about graduate school, but I wasn't thinking about Harvard. So he visited the school while I was working, and he called me and he was like, Sheldon, you need to apply. And I was like, why? He's like, I could really see you being a good fit there, and the level that you think at, I think this is the right place for you. And at that point, I was still skeptical, so I didn't apply, and I went to work. I was like, I need some time to think this through. So that's how much of a big decision it was to me. And when I applied, I still applied to 5 schools because I wasn't so set. And I also had, I'll be honest, I had a little lack of confidence that I would get into Harvard. Anybody would.
Absolutely, everybody would. Anybody would.
So I had a lack of confidence, and I applied to Harvard, Cornell, Yale, Virginia Tech, and Pratt, was it? I remember Harvard, Cornell, Yale, Virginia Tech. I think it was Pratt. And I got into all of them.
Wow.
And the moment I got the Harvard acceptance, to be honest, my top pick in that was Virginia Tech. Like in a pool of Ivy Leagues and Virginia Tech, I was like, I want to go to Virginia Tech. And I could say why quickly, because they had a program on architectural acoustics, which I think was a perfect merge for me and my music and architecture. So I was like, this is the place for me. But then the game changed when I got the Harvard acceptance. I was like,
wow.
I was like, okay, I was like, this is different, and I need to consider this.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much what it was.
So all of us who are parents right now, we're sitting here thinking, how do I get my child into Harvard? What does it take, Shelly? What does it take to get into Harvard? What do you think got you in?
I will say number one, good grades. Harvard is a very academically inclined, or they take the academics very seriously. So I will say good grades is one. So prior to going to Harvard, having those good grades, but I think character and personality, no matter what major you want to do, is important, because I realize that Harvard takes great interest in building a classroom around personalities as much as they look at grades.
Right.
So, like for example, a critical part of my application was my personal statement, and they told me like my personal statement had them just thinking like, I can't wait to meet this individual.
So what was in there? Tell us the secret. What was in there?
I mean, it really what it was pretty much my background and how I got into music versus architecture, and saying that my life is basically just surrounded by architecture and music. And I pretty much just move every day thinking about those two. And I think that Harvard University would be a great platform for me to sort of merge those two things that I really didn't know what I was about to do with. So I was like, this is where I want to come to explore these two things. I don't know what I want to do or how I want to do it, but I want you to allow me and give me the place. And that was what brought me into, I think that was a great part of my acceptance. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm taking notes, Shelly. I'm taking notes because I got a 9-year-old at home. So did it require you to have like community service, other things that you've done in terms of outside of your own interests?
Yeah. Can you repeat that? I was a bit distracted.
Yeah, no problem. So did the application require you to have community service, other things you've done out of your own self-interest?
Not really, not at all actually. Yeah, there was no requirement in that end. It was really so much about what are you interested in. I think that was the big question. What are you interested in? And the who are you question was like the most pertinent one. Like, who are you?
And it also helps that you're a valedictorian for your bachelor's degree. So, I got work to do.
Yeah. I think that also helped us. Yeah.
So now tell me what your family's reaction was when they found out that you got into Harvard University.
They were all super excited and was like, wait, what? Harvard?
Right.
And some of them were like, especially those in the Caribbean, were not really familiar with, the hierarchy of Ivy Leagues and other universities. So they were just like, is that the same Harvard that we see in the movies?
Yes. Yes.
I was like, yeah. And then a lot of them also made the reference to Barack Obama, and those sort of references began to come up, and they were like, is that for real? And I will say that immediately after the question came up about the cost, to them, they were like, so, but who's going to afford this? They're like, how much is it? How much is it to go there and whatever? And I was telling them I'm not even thinking about that yet. The point is that I got in and I already began to understand the American educational system, and that there's opportunity for a lot once you really apply yourself. So I didn't really want to focus on the finances just yet. I really wanted to just accept the fact that I had a great opportunity.
Right. Yeah, and you were eventually able to land a scholarship to help to kind of assist you?
And it was after negotiation in terms of, they offered me a scholarship initially. It wasn't a full one. And they offered something similar to Yale, and I didn't really want to go to Yale as much as I wanted to go to Harvard GSD. So I began to negotiate. I was like, well, Yale is offering me this, so what are you offering me?
Right.
And these are sort of old tricks that I learned from even some advisors. They were like, the reason they accept you is not because they feel like you just want to come here. They want you to come here just as much as you want to come here. Right. So I try to use that to sort of negotiate to get more out of my scholarship, and then eventually landed at a full tuition scholarship.
Good, good. So if you're just joining us, we're speaking to Shelly Alfred out of Dominica. Well, he's currently in Dominica. He's already told us about his musical journey from Calypsonian to beginning Signal Band and the challenges he faced with doing so. And now he's telling us his journey to get into Harvard University. So thank you for joining us if you're joining in right now. Now, Shelly, tell us, what was it like the first day you stepped onto that campus and realized that you were truly at Harvard University?
I was really nervous, I would say.
Yes.
It wasn't even a first day experience. Maybe it was like first few weeks. For the first few weeks, of course I could believe it. I can say I couldn't believe it, but I was just beginning to question a lot of things, like even in terms of times that I felt like I had a lack of self-esteem or lack of confidence in myself. And I was like, yo, I'm really here, you know? And something that I never imagined even like 3 years before it happened. It wasn't like something that I was just always thinking about. So that taught me that life just makes its sort of patterns for you based on the things that you do prior, so you're sort of creating that experience as you go along. And it was just exciting to just meet so many like-minded people. Even the lack of confidence started to fade away because I immediately began to realize that there's not much like difference in the people that are here. We all got in here for a reason because we're all great, all super intelligent. And our professors actually always remind us that we are all the same. They're like, you all got in here, which means that none of you are really smarter than the other.
Mm-hmm.
So that feeling lasted for a few weeks, I wouldn't lie, but then it immediately began to fade away. So I'm not nervous walking on Harvard's campus anymore.
Good, good.
I'm very confident.
Good. So now that presents a unique challenge for you, and this is what I really am trying to understand. How do you negotiate being at Harvard University and being the lead singer of a band? Because I'm thinking when my brother told me about you, I said, that's impossible. He's at school in Massachusetts, but he's the lead singer of a band that needs to be underground to play gigs. So you tell us how that is physically possible.
Yeah, a lot of people think it's impossible, and it's a question I get almost every day.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest tool for me was understanding that there's only one of me. So I can only survive this by making this life and this passion of mine one. So everything that I have been doing was I started reading books. As soon as it was actually when I got to Harvard, I realized that I couldn't continue living two separate lives, like being a musician and being an architect, being a musician and being an architect. So I started really to think of how can I merge these two things. And I obviously landed on the field of architectural acoustics, which is like a great interest of mine. Really like understanding how sound behaves in space. Mm-hmm. But then that's like on the academic side and on the professional side. But even just in how I view both of them, I literally just look at them as the same thing, or at the same level. I don't see any hierarchy or priority in music or architecture. Mm-hmm. And that has helped me a lot in the sense that it has forced me to manage my time well enough so that I get to put in a great amount of work into both of them. Mm-hmm. I want to be the best architect out there. I want to be the best musician out there. So whether I land in architectural acoustics or not, I just want to ensure that I put full effort as much as I can into both music and architecture. And it also comes as architecture is an art. And there's a great appreciation for architecture or for music by architects or by designers, because they feel like it's in the family of arts. And to be honest, every time I'm always honest with my professors, but every time I meet them or interact with them for the first time, I let them know I'm a musician by profession and not just I do music now and then. Mm-hmm. I let them know I do music and I take it very seriously, and I do architecture and I take it very seriously as well. And they themselves are always fascinated by how I balance the two. and they cannot believe it. Like sometimes I'll just tell them I'm missing school next week because I have to travel to Dominica.
Oh, seriously? Well, that's how you do it?
Yeah, yeah.
So how do you get caught up on the work? What if you have a test?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing about graduate school. I think it's a good moment. I obviously always found the most side that this happened in a very timely manner, where signal band's rise to stardom began when I was kind of in graduate school. And graduate school is flexible enough that, you know, you kind of curate your own path and your own, I could say, balance of work versus work-life balance. So this is about you. So even in terms, and they always tell us that we're all adults. So once we communicate, once I tell them that I have to travel to Dominica to perform, there have been situations where I've done an exam prior to leaving. There's been situations where I've done an exam when I come back. There have been situations where professors have told me that it's not a big deal. If you miss that presentation, it's okay. You know, and you know, the last one told me that it's not about the presentation, it's about the work that you have produced prior. So if you miss the presentation, like, you still have great work, it's fine. And they're very fascinated because they told me that they don't see architecture students, especially because the profession and the major is very time consuming. So they told me that they don't see architecture students often doing something other than architecture. So it really fascinates them, and they will never not allow me to do something.
Yeah, so I have to tell you, Shelly, I'm listening to you, and you're a very special person, because I'm a graduate of Columbia University. I did my master's at Columbia University, and as another Ivy League school, I have no idea how you're doing this because, you know, it's great what you're saying and everything, but
Yeah.
I personally know when I was at Columbia, I ate, slept, and breathed Columbia. So there was time for nothing else. So I have to tell you, you are certainly a very unique person to figure out how to balance traveling back and forth to Dominica and staying on top of your schoolwork. And I also have to give a lot of credit to your professors for being so accommodating, because I certainly do not see where I would have gone up to one of my professors at Columbia and say, oh, you know, I'm going to be in Dominica next week, so I won't be here for the exam. So kudos to your professors for being so accommodating.
Yeah, it's a very unique. The first time I had to explain to them, I was so nervous. I was like, I don't know how they're going to understand this. But then I realized that it was also determined by how I approach them to ask about it anyway. Like, so I realized that I had a part to play, and I ensure that I really explain to them what's going on and how much music means to me, and how much that even I draw so much influence from music into architecture and vice versa. So when I speak like that and it shows in my work, then it's really nothing for them to say like, oh,
yeah. And I think they're kind of approaching it from the idea that you might be onto something very unique in terms of combining architecture and music.
Yes.
So, you know, keep in touch with these professors, because you never know where this can go for you in terms of your ability to combine the two. Yeah, certainly. So now you describe yourself as an architectural composer, a musical designer. So what does that mean, Shelly?
That's because, well, I was trying to define myself like, if someone asked me, who am I don't want to say that I'm a 24-year-old from Goodwill, Dominica, and all that. Like, I feel like I should have a straightforward answer as to who am I. I think, and that was the most concise way I could describe myself. And basically now just sort of scrambling and merging the ideas of my two passions, music. So in its normal sense, I would have been an architectural designer and a musical composer. But because I always try to cross-pollinate between the two, I figure that right now it's set that when I do music, sometimes I always think architecture. Sometimes I do architecture and I'm thinking about the composition of windows. I'm thinking about the composition. And when I do music, I'm like, what is the structure like? And what is the base of that song? And what is the rhythm? you know, and I take that rhythm back to architecture. So it just feels so fluid now that I am sure that I'm an architectural composer. I'm not an architectural designer.
Yeah, fascinating, fascinating. So given your experiences and your education so far, what does your ideal future look like in terms of being able to combine the two? What would your ideal future look like?
Yeah, that's a nice question. I always get excited when I hear that question because it's the thing that I wake up every day and think about.
Yeah.
And so far, what I am working towards, like, I'm not waiting for my future to just define itself, but what I'm working towards is to be a professional artist slash musician and draw in on the influences of architecture and my education. And I actually know that the reality is, as a musician, there are so many uncertainties, like even the most famous ones. We see it with people like Rihanna and Jay-Z, who have ventured into other businesses because music is a weird industry, and it's very uncertain, and they all use their brand. So they build their brand around music because that's like the most fascinating thing to build your brand around. Like there's a certain excitement around that, and they create all that brand awareness around music, and then they use that then to launch and venture into any business that they want to, and it will sell. So my plan is to build my brand around my music, and I know eventually I will be designing $1 million homes for people.
Yes. I like the way you think. So you're kind of just staying fluid and
Yeah.
see how the movements of the music and the architecture, how it's all going to converge
Yeah.
in the end. So that's you're truly a fascinating young man. I'm certainly happy to be having this conversation with you. So now, as somebody who's relatively young, what advice would you give to the young men, young women in Dominica coming up who are interested in specifically music?
Well, music, in terms of music, I would firstly advise anyone to understand the business of music, and understand the theory of music. And I think that that's what applies to any other profession or any other industry that you venture into, whether it's medicine, all of that. You understand what the thing is, and then you understand, how do I commercialize this and make money out of this to create a livelihood? So, and I think there's a lack of that in Dominica when we think of music. We see music as a very fun, people enjoy music, but we're still lacking on the commercialization of the art. So I want to encourage our musicians to really consider the commercialization of the art, and they will realize how much that will trickle back down into their lyrics, the actual product itself, their image, and all of the other million things that make you a complete artist. So that for sure is the main thing. Like, I would focus on what the music actually is, the theory of it, and then think about the business.
Yeah, and I can certainly tell that you've spoken to Gordon Henderson, because he said exactly the same thing. And it is in fact correct that a lot of times people go into music because they like to sing. People have always said, oh, you have such a great voice, you should be a singer. And then they make a band and they're just doing this gig here, that gig here, that gig here, but
Yeah,
they don't have a plan. They don't have a business plan. They don't have a management team. So I
exactly.
think that's what is lacking, and hopefully that can lead to a music industry in Dominica. So before you leave us, any thoughts on why we don't have a music industry in Dominica?
um,
You don't have to get into politics.
nah, I think, as much as politics has a great part to play in it, I think as musicians we don't have a common goal. We don't have common
Mhm.
goals, and that can be a great loss for the industry, or for the lack thereof, and that can be a great cause, because I think we are heavy in competition, which I have no problem with, but one thing that we should unite on is having a common goal. That, okay, the goal is to take your music specifically out there, and as a sort of commercial level, then we all work towards that. Whether we compete or not, everyone has that in their mission statement, that I am about to make quality music because I want that to reach, because I and the other 90-something musicians in Dominica know we are representing each other either way, and we want to take that music to a certain level. So I don't think there's a unified vision in our music as yet. Like, people are in our music for a lot of different reasons.
Right.
You know, as you say, some people, just because they can sing, they pick up a mic. For others, it's just because some people, it's for the fame and popularity only.
Well, and for some of them, it's to get girls, because that's what
You know,
Gordon
it's
said.
to get girls.
Girls.
Some people will get
Honest.
girls. Some people want to get girls. Some people want to just make a little money on the weekends.
Right.
But then we need to understand that if it's done the right way and we create an industry, girls will come, popularity will come, money will come.
Absolutely.
Everything will come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much, Shelly. It's been wonderful having this conversation with you, and I am so excited for your future. I cannot wait to see what you will do next. So please keep in touch with us. Let us know what you're doing, what you're working on. And finally, how can we get in touch with you if we wanted to follow you, we wanted to purchase your music? Just give us some information on that before you head out.
Okay. Well, our music is available on all major streaming and download platforms. I'll start with that. And there's music under the brand of Shelly, and there's also Signal Band. So I will present social media handles for both Shelly and Signal Band. So for Shelly, you can check me out on Twitter at Shelly_Shelly. That's my new persona, Shelly. Shelly_Shelly. On Instagram, I am Shelly_Alfred. On Facebook, I'm Shelly. On YouTube, so when we go over to the Signal brand, under the Signal umbrella, the YouTube page is Signal Band Official. The Instagram is Signal_Band. Facebook is Signal Band. And for bookings, which is very important.
Very important.
For bookings, our booking agent and manager is Jelani Robinson. And he can be reached at signaltheband@gmail.com or at 767-277-8400.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is signaltheband@gmail.com. That's the email address for your booking agents.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you again for being with us, and we look forward to staying in touch with you and seeing all the amazing things you will do.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a good pleasure talking, and I look forward to seeing more of your work and see you also blossom, because you're amazing. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.